us identify the place where you're at.
Je stopped at beginners, naat to beginners 1, 2, forward. A little under half the page.
Mm-hmm. Where did you apart this? Turn on the heart, see, when we're that's the beginning of spheres, yeah.
I'm going to start.
Yes, you can ask a question.
When Hashem decided to netzel, so it came out in 10 spheres. And we discussed it in emotional. When a person wants to do something, you should do it in order. It's intrinsic. That's how it happens. And I just trying to repeat it now. I don't remember if I remember it correctly, and the things that I took out of it is correct.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, because in a person, when a person has his whatever feeling in himself, then the basis for the feeling is person himself. A person wants to take the feeling outside. For example, if he wants to have a couch which only is comfortable to sit, and not only to think about the couch which only is comfortable to sit, he has to build the couch in a seder, because then it takes a seder to make it. How to make the basis for this impression, for this feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why when Hashem wanted to take his to netzel, to go outward. So this going outward needs a seder for establishment of the base for this or whatever going to be netzel. If it's right, I don't know.
Well, it's right. I don't know if it's catching the heart of it. You know what I'm saying?
No.
You know what? It can be correct, but it's not necessarily hitting the nail on the head. You know what I'm saying? Okay. It's hitting the nail on the side.
All right.
So when you hit the nail on the side, what happens?
Right, it bends.
It bends off a little bit. The important point is that to recreate a true essence, to recreate it outside of the essence, it has to be recreated in a certain order. Like I explained to you, I think I also said this, that when you observe, you saw something. In sighting this, in seeing it, you saw it in one instant. Didn't take time to see it. You saw the whole thing. But if you want to describe to someone, not what you saw, but the impression that it made on you. Right? To describe what you saw, obviously there are many things that you saw. But even just the essence of the impression it made on you, it also has to be presented in a certain way.
Right, but this aspect.
You know why?
No. Yeah.
You know why?
No.
Because when you're presenting, you can't present the essence. You have to create it with other means. And any time you put one thing into other means, into kalim, it gets spread out.
Okay, so it's like you have to create a base for it, right? A place where to put it, no? That's not what that means?
Yes. Yeah. But as I said, the important thing is not so much the base, but that
you can't do it in one shot.
That which is on a higher level to be expressed on a lower level takes much more room.
Okay. No, but that's not the explanation why should it be Seder.
And it has to be Beseder, because if it's not Beseder, then you're not expressing it. I'll explain to you. Going back to this Indian of sighting, you saw something. Right, listen carefully to this. You saw something, and you want to describe to someone the impression it made. Okay. There are several things involved in this impression. In this impression, one obvious thing is you were impressed, and it made an indelible, it made a mark on you. It registered in your memory. And you can walk away from the thing and you still have that impression. Okay. This is the chitzonius of the impression. The chitzonius because it can exist even when the sighting itself is not longer there. It's like memory. It's like translating the impression into some thought.
So it's the effect of an impression.
It's the effect of the impression which you carry with
can
you.
Stay
without having the impression in front of you. Okay. Then there is the thought process that translated the impression into making that mark on you. In other words, you understand? And then there is the actual sighting it, the actual seeing it.
In the moment when you see
The moment when you see it, it's a totally different effect. When you want to transmit it and express it to someone, you don't want just to say what you remember. You want to give him the whole thing.
What's impressed you?
What impressed you?
You want it impressed him.
Right.
Through your words.
And you want to tell him what the impression was, not just how you remember it, what the impression was at the time when you saw it.
Right.
You understand?
Right.
And therefore, to give it to him, by you, it's all happened all in one instant.
Automatically, because impression was there.
The impression was there. To him, you will say, when I saw it, I had this. But then I thought about it. And then I was impressed that way. So you have 3 different stages. These 3 different stages are effectively Chochmah Bina V'das. You understand?
Yeah.
And it's the only way to give it to him. It hit me as a thunderbolt. Okay, that's the first thing. It hit me. It really impressed me. You didn't say anything, but you told him, you were impressed by this sight. Which means you take him into your confidence. You're taking him along with you to that moment of sighting. And then you tell him what the thought process, what you were thinking at the time. What it made you think of. And how it impressed itself, and how what remained with you, and how it really affected you. You understand? And even though at the moment it was all one thing, but then when you have to translate it to him, there's no way you can give it him in one thing, because you have to impress him in 3 different things. Three different aspects. The sighting, the thought process, and the effect.
So when you say that since you cannot give him the sight itself, so you should start from the impression that's made on you.
You have to. In order to give him this whole thing, you have to set it out in this way.
In the word.
Okay.
But in the Nimshal, you're saying that we're comparing this scene that he sees that impresses him as the will,
as the essence, right?
As the will to create, to be netzel, to spread out, right? And then to actually, but then to in the mashal to tell the person that's the spreading out, right? When you actually tell him that's the action that we're comparing to the actual spreading, right? It seems like
Wait a second. The whole purpose of this mashal is to explain why, if you talk about creation, you're talking about 10 spheres, not one. And at any level that you're talking about, even when you're talking about the Rotzen, immediately in the Rotzen there were already 10 spheres.
In the Rotzen itself.
In the Rotzen itself, there were 10 spheres. As a sphere is Agnuzis B'matzil. Then 10 spheres. And I explain why. Because in order to bring out an essence, it has to come in multiple, in this, in a form. Yeah. Okay, we'll go a little further. The Gamlefi Mashikosim HaPardes. This is just below the middle of the page. Oh, everybody has the place? Gamlefi Mashikosim. The Gamlefi Mashikosim HaPardes B'shar Seder Ho'atzilus Pered Dalet. Even according to what the Pardes writes. Ahuva B'shalosh Shom. What the Pardes says. Shegam Koidem Alois Horotzoin Hoyu Hasfirois B'koyach. This is actually bringing down and involving a big two ways of relating, of talking about Oyer in Soif, whether there was Esespheres in the Oyer or there were no Esespheres in the Oyer. Whether it's called the Oyeres are Pshutim or the Oyeres are Mitsuyorim. Mitsuyorim, the Oyeres have to have also Atzir. So he says, even according to what the Parah says, that even Koidem Alois Horotzin Hoya Spheres B'koyach, the spheres were there B'koyach. The Karhu Ba'aviris HaKedesh. So, therefore, we could say, what is the point of this? If we say that before Alois Horotzin, there were also the spheres B'koyach. What did we just finish speaking about the Alois Horotzin? That the Alois Horotzin, we said that even though it was only the Rotzin, but it's all the koyach, the bekoyach that was created to the Rotzin is a real thing. It doesn't need to be further developed. It's complete in itself. So the Rebbe says that even what the Pardes says, that even before Alois Horotzin, the spheres were already bekoyach. So there one may think that they were only bekoyach but not bepoyel. They were not real yet, and therefore these spheres would be complemented, would be completed if they came into revelation. So the Rebbe says that's not, even that is not the case.
What do you mean before the Ratzon?
Before the Ratzon.
Even we're saying before we said the Ratzon was the sort created 10 spheres.
Even before the Ratzon, there were the spheres were there, even before the creation, so to speak, before the first.
Before it even rose.
Right, even before the Ratzon, Aliyah Ratzon, there were already the spheres bekoyach.
Which koyach are we talking about?
In the Oyer, there was already contained the spheres. The spheres. Not the spheres, but spheres. So therefore, what's the point? The point in this, in these inyanim, we will limit ourselves to the extent that we are going to dig, because this is Kabbalah issues which will just explain to the extent that we need to explain it here. The point is, if there were spheres before and they were only bekoyach, so perhaps this level of the sphere requires to be completed by creation.
So it's chaser koyach.
Chaser koyach. So this is what he says. That even in this view, that there was a spheres bekoyach before Aliyah Ratzon. So he says, Hine mehamavur shom. However, if you investigate clearly, if you look clearly into what is explained there, move on you will understand shegam bozeh yesh bechinas poil. That even there, in this bekoyach, there is also bechinas poil. There is also an aspect of poil. Eventually, we will have to understand the terminology used in Chassidus. And the word bechinas is very, very commonly used. And what does bechinas mean? Why do you say bechinas? Yesh b'zeh poil. Why do you say bechinas poil? What does bechina mean? And this is a very common use word in Chassidus, and it's clearly used in a meaningful way. What's it bechinas poil? The union of bechina, the word bechina means test.
Test?
Test, bechina. Bechina means to test something. What is the union of testing? Testing, when do you need to test something? When at first glance, in the most obvious way, you don't see what it is. So you have to go and test it to see what it actually is. And after you test it, the external appearance still remains what it was. But through the test, you know what its content is. What's in there. This means bechina. What is this alluding to? What is the message in this? The message in this is that in itself, it is not exactly what we're talking about. But there is the aspect in it that if you test it, it also denotes that inyan. Even though in its appearance and its presentation, it's totally something different. Okay, what's mean bechina? This is what he says. That gams b'zeh yesh bechinas poil. There is the aspect of poil, not poil bepoil. It's before the creation. Nothing was bepoil. Poil means created, made. There's nothing made over there. But there is the bechina of it lends itself to being referred to as poil, even though it's not poil. What is the bechina of poil?
Then it's not choseh poil yet.
Right. Therefore, it's not choseh poil. What is the bechina of poil? What tests like poil? That's what he explains. So commission kosel, and as he says over there, when he refers to the spheres that exist in the oil, shelifnei hatzimtzum, lifnei aliyah zarotz. He says that there are the spheres bekoyach. So he describes the spheres as ne'elomim boy, that they are contained in it, in the oil, bekoyachoi, in his koyach, b'mitzius dak v'nela. B'mitzius dak v'nela. The mitzius means in a presence that is very fine. Dak means fine. And nela means it's concealed. It eludes identifying and recognition. This means nela. What is he trying to say? Trying to say is that it is there in reality. Clearly, it's part of the koyach itself, but nevertheless, it actually contains these koyachs in a sense of bepoya. I'm going to explain what's meant bepoya. Bepoya, in fact, when you say something is there, bepoya means that it actually, like in our terminology, something is there, bepoya means it actually occupies space. It takes up room. If you think of something, no matter how fine the thought is, it has taken some time to think it. It may be a very infinitesimal amount of time. but it found its place. If you did not have a split second to think about it, you couldn't have thought about it. This means that it's there, bepoil. It actually shows itself to the point where it actually displaces every other thought. You thought about, for this split second, you thought about this, not about something else. That's mean bepoil. When we say that in this koyach, the koyach, that lifnei alizarot, there were as spheres. These spheres are not there bepoil, taking up room. Because they are part of the koyach itself. They're not separate entities at all. But the mitzios dak v'nelam, they are contained within it.
We have to explain. It doesn't seem in the head.
The mitzios dak v'nelam, I don't know if I can explain. Because it just want you to get to the words that he's saying. Well, I'll try to make it as clear as possible. I'll come back to this question of explaining in a minute. So he says, "B'ntzius dak v'nelam, v'chein kosav achar kach." And similarly, further down he writes further to explain this presence, this mitzius, that he says, "Ad shekimat," that this its finesse and its concealment is so complete that almost kimat almost lo yitzdak boy shem mitzius hasfiris, that the whole terminology to refer to it as presence of mitzius hasfiris is not appropriate, cannot even correctly be referred to it. Yitzdak means justified. It wouldn't be justified to say that there is a mitzius of spheres. Elo, only yichud amiti, true unity. True unity means what? What is the difference between true unity and echod and yichud? Yichud means, echod means uniting. When you say uniting, means that you have multiplicity, but they're all united together. Yichud means that there is only a single thing. It's not uniting anything. There's nothing to unite. So in order to express it, he says it's not even justified to say that there is a mitzius, a presence. What then? It's yichud amiti. It's true yichud, and yet we say there is a presence.
Almost, you say.
It's almost impossible to say that there is a presence, but nevertheless something is there.
Right.
Okay. So this is what the Rebbe concludes. Hare mikol mokoim. Nevertheless, even after what he explains the Paras, that it's almost impossible to say that there is anything, but nevertheless, yesh eize mitzius dak. There is some mitzius dak. It's not just a potential without a presence. For our purposes, this is what we want to bring down. That even according to the Pardes, even before Alizah Rotzen, if he says there is spheres, there is a mitzius dak. And the point of this is that there is eize mitzius dak. Why is it coming to us? It means this. V'tzorich leimar. We have to therefore to conclude the lemailo einay shayach koyach b'loi poil. At lemailo koyach without a poil is not possible, because every koyach is already a presence.
And therefore the creation.
And therefore we go back to the question.
Right.
We go to the question. What does it mean that the creation was for shleimus hakoyach?
Is not lacking synonymous with complete? To say that his koyach is not chaser poil, is that it's one and the same?
L'chayra, what then is missing? Chosar Poel means that it hasn't reached its full potential. If it's not Chosar Poel, means it reached its full potential. It's there. It's not like when you understand something, but I haven't fully understood it, and it bothers me, I need to dig further. No such thing. At the level that I understand it, I understand it. The hakoyach, then it says in parentheses, but we have to understand. The hakoyach v'hapoyel, shnei, both the koyach and the poyel, both einom muchrochim chas v'sholem. They're not muchrochim. Ki im heim berotzei. They're all berotzim, by choice.
The whole concept, yeah.
The whole, right. If we say that there is a koyach of spheres l'maylo, it isn't that it's there automatically. He's got no choice but to be there. It's there because there is a rotzim that it should be there.
That the whole concept of koyach and poel should be.
Right. The whole concept of koyach and poel should be, and the inyan that the inyan should be bekoyach is also berotzim. It's not like by a human being that his potential is born with him. This is how he is. The question is what he does with it. The poel is what he creates. This is what his choice comes in. The Maila, nothing is automatic. It's all berotz. And now, with this short comment, we'll understand the following parentheses, where he says, "Va'amitius inyan koyach levad." The true inyan of koyach, that is exclusively koyach and not poel. Yesh loymar, we can say, shezeh bebechino mandrega kuzu, that is true, that is possible in such a madrega, sheino ishayach bechinas eze dover ma. Where anything of saying that there is anything is totally impossible. V'hainu, what madrega is this? Bechinas ho'atzmiyus. This is bechinas ho'atzmiyus. Again, we use the word bechinas ho'atzmiyus. Why do you say bechinas ho'atzmiyus? Because if you say atzmiyus, we immediately think of a mitzias. Atzmiyus is not a mitzias.
What does that mean, though? The true union of koyach compared to what?
Compared to what we're saying till now, that koyach and poel come together.
But that's what we said is not like by Hashem.
No. We say l'maylo koyach and poel come together.
Ah, okay.
To refer to koyach levad, to koyach by itself, without poel, this is only at the highest level. It's called bechinas ho'atzmiyus.
And we can't say that lamata either. There's an union of koyach. Right?
No, l'maylo. Lamato, there is koyach without poel.
Yeah.
Because the koyach is incomplete. But l'maylo, koyach and poel come together.
So what kind of koyach is talking about here?
Oh,
about koich, which is koich, but that's not choser poel, right?
1 second. It's also not choser peil, but it's a different type of koyach. Koyach levat, koyach, just koyach without koyach. Before we continue, I want that we shouldn't get lost in these terms over here. And we should have some perspective what this means. Meaning, where do we come to talk about these things? Every seichel, and we spoke about it yesterday a little bit, every seichel has to have a basis. What are what's drawing you there? There's a saying, Stam makshin am haaretz. Did you ever hear that expression?
No.
Stam makshin am haaretz. Which means, if one asks a kasha, stam, out of the blue. This is called an am haaretz. What is a stam makshin? What is it out of the blue? A kasha that has no significance. You didn't come to it because you labored and tried to understand something. You're looking for something, and this was an obstacle in your way. It's not in your way. You're not going there. How many waves are now in this on the beach? You're learning this. Can you tell me maybe how many waves there are on the beach? It's a stomach. It's not in your way. It's not part of your thought process. It's on the blue. So when you start talking about koyach and poel and higher and higher until amitis in hakoyach in here from atzmius, we have to understand that all of these things, some way, they are in our path of thought. They're revealing something to us. Even though this is parenthetical, which means it's a little bit not in line of what we're directly discussing. But our discussion brought us to think about it. And since we want to have a complete thing, we don't want to skip over anything, so we bring this in parenthetically that this is also possible. But it has to have some contextual meaning. The context of this whole discussion. Why did Hashem create the world? And there is a koiches and shleimus a koiches, and koyach choser peil, koyach ein choser peil, and then going higher and higher and higher. What is the general context? The general context is that in the Metzius of the world, like we discussed today, there are a whole bunch of things. Whole bunch of things. They can be unrelated, they can be related. We can relate them if we want to, we can unrelate them if we want to. The only true way that they would have meaning is if we recognize that they all emanate from one source. Which means not only are they related on the factual, on the poel mamash, but they're related in their inception. Like the Baal Shem Tov says, that even if a leaf turns over in the street, it makes a difference whether it turns over by the wind or it turns over because somebody pushed it. And it's Negeya all the way up to the highest levels in Elokus. So we go and we say we go to the point where we say that the koichos exist in the oiris, in the aliyah, in the rotzin, in the rotzin the havis, in the rotzin the aliyahs of rotzin, and then we say that it actually exists even higher than aliyahs of rotzin, which all points out that this creation, even though this creation actually originates at the highest levels. But then it originates in the highest levels. But these highest levels themselves are also not muchrochim, but they're by rotzim. If they were muchrochim, so then it means that there isn't perfect unity. If there were many spheres, and the many spheres are existent as many, it's already many, it's not one. It's already not in from Yichud. But when we say that they're not muchrochim, that means that there is one single rotzin that creates them all, that brings them out. So therefore already there is a unity. And now we're going further up. That in fact there is such a union that's called koyach levad. But this koyach levad is a different type of koyach completely. This which we said till now, that a koyach, if it is short of poil, it's lacking, it's not complete. This is true only in a koyach that came into being. In simple terms, if you did something and you didn't complete it, so therefore what you did is not complete. And it demands that you should complete it. And this is true at all levels. Even in the Oyer Shelifnei Atzimtzum, even in the Oyer Shelifnei Aliyah Zerotzim, this is all Ayin from Gilui. Something was done. And if it was done, if it's only a koyach without a poil, it's not incomplete and it has to be completed. But when you go beyond that, something where nothing was done, where it is in the Etzem, there the koyach levad is not lacking poil at all, because this koyach didn't come into being. Are you with me? Yes? And this is what he's pointing out. That amit is inyan koyach levad. The true inyan of koyach levad by itself, meaning without a poil, which means it's just a koyach, without a poil. Yesh loimer shezeh bebchino madrege kuzu. This exists. This can be spoken of in such a madrege. She'eino ishaya bechinas eize dover ma. And a madrege where the bechinas eize dover ma. Again, bechinas eize dover ma. What is bechinas eize dover ma? Even in the oil also there is no dover ma. But you can be boichein. There is a content. But there is an in with not even a bechina. Even if the bechina there is no dover. There is nothing there. There is only there is nothing there. Eize dover ma. La'ayno bechinas ha'o atzmius she'eino bechinas mitzius nimtzach atzvashon. You know atzmius, which is not bebchinas nimtz, which is not in a state that can be referred to as present. Bebchinas
Referred to as
nimtza.
what?
Bebchinas mitzius nimtza. These are terms that you never heard before. Is that correct? Never heard before.
What?
Huh?
Some of them I mean,
Bebchinas mitzius nimtza.
No. I mean, I know the words, but not as a phrase.
Oh, I understand. I'm talking about a phrase.
No.
All right, let's see if we can labor through this. I'll go through the next line. Atzmius she'ene bebchinas mitzius nimtza. The atzmius, which is not, cannot even be tested for a mitzius nimtza. A mitzius that is present. Chas v'sholem. The amitis himotzei. Amitas himotzei. Because the truth of his existence, of his presence. This is a word directly from the Rambam. It's amitas himotzei, that everything that exists came from amitas himotzei, from the truth of his presence. Who, the truth of his presence is such, shenimtzo bebilti mitzius nimtzo. He is present without the parameters that define an existence. The Rambam says right in the beginning that the principle of Emunah is Leida sheyesho motzei, to know that there is a first being, mamtzi kol nimtzo, that brings out all existence, and all existence comes from amitas himotzei, from the truth of his existence. Okay, what does this mean? Everything that we observe in existence in the world firstly, even while we'll observe its existence, we say this exists, even then we recognize that this existence is temporary. It's not an existence that must be. It happens to be here. And maybe sometime later it won't be here. Every existence is changeable. It's not something that is compelling that it's there. Even the existence of the entire creation, entire world. This is why we recognize that the world is a creation. Because the very existence of world itself is also not a must. There's nothing inherent in the world that says that the world is self-creating, must be. But then on the other hand, if even in the entire existence, entire cosmos that we can observe, there is nothing that is inherently true. So it in itself is taking that inherently true, but it attests. You know what attest means? It shows that there has to be some real existence, because otherwise where does existence come from in the first place? Any kind of existence. This may be a temporary, but it has to come from some real existence. This is the simple pshat what the Rambam says. Me'amitas imotz. Everything comes me'amitas imotz because his presence is a true presence. Now, what is the difference? How do we identify? I'm saying the whole entire existence that we can observe, that we can relate to, is not a true existence, and we can see it. It doesn't have to be there. It's there, and we're constantly asking the question, where is it coming from? The reason we ask the question, where is it coming from, is because it's tenuous. Something that is here, that that is does not have a self-sustaining power to be, we ask the question, where is it coming from? It's not a real thing. So this is all the whole existence that we can relate and observe. And then we say, but that itself attests to the fact that there is amitis imotzi. There's a true existence. What is the difference between this amitis imotzi and the existence that we observe? The difference is that which we can observe is an existence in some type of form, in some type of presence. And we say that any kind of presence, any kind of form is not a must. It can be and cannot be. Therefore, it means that amitis imotzi means it has absolutely no form, no kind of presence. It's not dependent on presence. Hashem's presence is not a presence as we define it, because if it were, it's not amitis imotzi. Then we question where he's coming from. That means amitis imotzi is not within our realm of orientation at all. We don't even define it as a presence. Because anything that's present needs a creator to create it. So this is described in the Rambam and in Sifrei HaChokrim in these words. Amit is him motzoi, the truth of his presence and his existence. Who is such that shenimtzo bebilti mitzias nitzo, that he is present, but not in a state of mitzias nimtzo, of a mitzias that exists, in a non-presence, in a non-existence. These are obviously very fine and very deep thoughts, but again, I want to bring us back into context so that we can be within some kind of touch. We say every day in davening. What do we say in davening? Adoin oilam asher molach b'terem kol yitzur nivra. What does this mean? The master of the world, who reigned b'terem kol yitzur nivra, before anything was created. How do you know what happened before anything was created? What does it mean? That he reigned before anything was created.
He was Nimsa.
That means that you recognize that his presence is not a created presence. That's the first thing. So even though clearly we have absolutely no concept, we have no way in our deepest thought crevices to be able to conceptualize this in it, because it doesn't have a concept, it doesn't have a mitzias. But clearly this is part of our amunah, the principles of our amunah. This is why this is called amunah. Because seichel is what we can define in our seichel, what we can conceptualize. That which is beyond our concept, we say this is an amunah. What does that mean? We know it because in our neshama, because we know it inherently, but not that we can really define it and explain it. And this is why we can freely come and say, without knowing anything, he reigned before anything was created. That's the Rebus, that's the Hashem that I know exists. That's the Hashem that I'm davening to. And then we go about further. Leis naso v'cheftzoi koyim. That at the time when everything was created by his chayfetz, by his will, Hazai, then Melech Shmoy Nikra, then he was called Melech. In truth, he was a Melech way before everything was created. But when was he called Melech? Nasa b'cheftzei koyim, when everything was created with his rights. What's the next phrase? Say it. What does it say?
After everything was created,
No. Listen to what you're saying. V'acharei kichlois hakoyim. Oh, you know the Tach kichlois.
Kichlois, what? I don't know.
Kichlois means when everything ends. When everything will cease to be.
He will still be one king.
He will still be back there. What do we know what happened before? What do we know what's going to happen after? I mean, how do we relate to it? We know it because this is part of our Amun. Inside our Neshama, we know that this is the Rebbeinu that means that he is not part of our existence as we define existence. This is something which precedes and succeeds. This is a totally different level of existence. Okay, this is the Inyan. She means that the deal to Mitzias needs. V'sham, there, at this madrege, eino shayach inyan hapoyel chas v'sholem. The inyan of poyel is not shayach chas v'sholem. Why chas v'sholem? Because if we say poyel, that means that it's not a real Mitzias. Poyel means it consists in being there, in being having some kind of a definition. But this existed before anything was created. That's why we say chas v'sholem. If we say that it's saying a poyel, we're denying the whole thing.
This concept that you mentioned, that something is, if you have thought, it's occupied the time in 1 second.
That's right.
It's not there, definitely.
If you say poyel, it shows on something that is Metzias.
That is a Metzias needs. Right? That's what poyel means.
Something
At whatever level, as the Padre says, dakun elam, but it's dakun elam. Some Metzias. It's not built in Metzias needs. Ukmoy kein eine shayach shom in hakoyach gamke. And therefore, really, the union of koyach also is not applicable there. There is not koyach and not poyach. What then there is? There is a different thing. And im heyois, although the bechinas atzmiyus noisei hakoyach, that atzmiyus noisei hakoyach means it bears everything. Absolutely everything is there. But ein zeh, but that doesn't mean shehu noisei bekoyach has v'sholem. That he bears it bekoyach. It means there is something there with which he's bearing it. Din came, because if that was so, yesh ez mitzias v'sholem. Then again we come back to mitzias.
So why do we just say that the Mitzias, in koyach levad is there, and then he says, but there's no poyel there, and there's no koyach.
There's no koyach there. Okay. So because this koyach is a different type of koyach. It's the only way for us to refer to it is bekoyach, but it's a different aspect of koyach than what we referred to bekoyach before.
So
it's not a koyach that chosef peil at all. It's a different kind of koyach.
It means that everything is possible there, right?
Everything
it's not no impossibility at all.
No, not even possibility.
No?
And, okay.
No,
yes, but we will maybe sometimes we were up to the middle of there. We'll try to identify these things. Kiyim only mashoho atzmus mechayev hakoyach. Right after the small parenthesis. Mashoho atzmus mechayev hakoyach. The idea that atzmus mechayev brings everything out. Not that atzmus has anything, but it brings everything out.
Mechayev means obligates to be? Or?
No. Yes, brings everything out. V'hu inyan, and this is the inyan, sheme'amitas himotzei nimtze kol hanimtzoim. The truth of his existence, nimtze kol hanimtzoim. In other words, but he is pointing in these words, inyan sheme'amitas himotzei nimtze kol hanimtzoim, he is saying this, that this inyan, that from his presence everything came to being, that everything came to being from his presence are not two separate things. That his presence and everything came to being. In other words, that there is two different madrigas. One is his presence, and the other thing that everything can come into being. No, his presence did everything out. It's not two separate in Yon. Okay, I'll stop here, otherwise we'll get lost.
No.
No. I'd like to know, how much of this, yeah,
What?
how much of this was seen, was.
It's good to talk about it,
Yeah, I figured.
I'm glad we stopped here, because if we went further, we might have got confused or something. Who knows? It's a good thing we stopped here.